you never heard of. Hey everybody, welcome to the Common Folk Podcast with Ben, Morgan, and Andy.
All right, so here we are again. How you guys doing today?
Doing good. Another beautiful summer afternoon here.
Yep, hot, muggy,
Yep, pretty warm.
a little humid.
I'll tell you what I've really noticed from last year to this year. We're surrounded by cottonwood trees, and ours are just dropping cotton like crazy to where it's annoying. Like, we have a pool, and the skimmers are constantly clogged. My AC unit outside, I've cleaned it twice in the same day. I mean, it's just insane. It looks like there's just snow falling from these trees into my house, into my garage. But I do have to admit, if that's the worst I have it, I got it pretty good, don't I?
Right? Yeah.
They do suck. They are everywhere.
You have a couple trees or just one?
Our house is like surrounded by
Oh,
like 4
tons.
or 5 mature, big old cottonwoods, which that's the state tree. So I guess I should be a little more patriotic.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
It's Nebraska.
What am I doing? Talking.
They do,
I mean-
and they get huge.
Yeah,
But,
Like the one out here.
yeah, but they're kind of soft too.
they are. They're a fast-growing tree that grows to these humongous sizes, and those branches, they'll get to be about a foot in diameter, and they'll drop them, and they're heavy. So they're yeah, you kind of the bow hunter in me, you're always kind of leery of getting in an old cottonwood. You got to look what's above you, what's below you. You know, you just got to be conscious of that stuff with the cottonwood.
Oh, because you think it's just going to break and fall on you?
Yeah, you don't want that branch above you to fall on. Yeah, no way.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta be like survival instinct out there.
Gosh,
You
didn't
do.
even think of that.
Yeah.
I mean, look at you.
It was a little bit of a issue a few years ago for the city of Omaha. City parks had these old cottonwood trees. They were dropping branches, and one actually, injured some people. So
Oh,
you got to be, careful with the cottonwoods, I guess.
yeah.
So, enough with the chitter chatter. Let's get at it.
Oh, okay.
I'll probably say this a number of times as we go through these podcasts, because I think this is kind of the theme, is that, like, we're right here in middle America, all of us raised in Nebraska, a lot of common sense, a lot of just thinking through things like this adds up, this doesn't, kind of stuff. And I think a lot of the topics that we're going to tackle, that's how we're tackling them.
Right. Kind of a blue-collar mentality or viewpoint, but also that I like to bring critical thinking into it. Like, does it make sense? Does it add up? And I
Exactly.
think that's kind of what you're getting at there.
It is. And the topic that we're going to talk about today is that, because there's some things that just don't seem to add up, and it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't seem to work around here.
All right.
And maybe it works in other parts of the country. I don't know. I mean, we're open to things. We'll talk about it. But I'm going to let you start this one off, Andy, because you, as this thing develops, like, you're becoming the research guy.
Right.
Like,
The
you're the
data guy, I think you said.
the data guy, yeah.
I mean, and we have some food in front of us.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I wanted to do some legwork here, and I was just honestly curious over this topic, and it's quote-unquote real meat versus cell-based meat, or lab-created meat. It's catching a lot of buzz lately. You're starting to see these products in restaurants, fast food chains, and as you're alluding to, that's what we kind of brought in the studio here, the Impossible Whopper versus the regular Whopper, and I've never had an Impossible Whopper, so I thought this would be a good opportunity, rather than just make a judgment over something, let's actually try it out and see what we think here. So maybe take a couple bites of it as we kind of get in there, get into this topic and form our opinions over the matter.
I mean, and just looking at it, I'm just saying the packaging on this Impossible Whopper looks more appetizing. They made it green.
Nice. Yeah.
There's a little more color. I get it.
And they were about $1 more per burger.
Okay.
The Impossible, yeah, that's something to consider.
Cha-ching.
But $1 per burger, I think if that's your stance and your goal, and you're pro plant-based meats, you're willing to pay that extra $1. And obviously, Burger King and others have done their homework to figure that sweet spot out. So I think that's where the price differential comes from.
One of the things that you said at the beginning there that I'm not clear on, you were talking about the difference, and you said something about like, real meat versus this cell-based meat or whatever. So isn't there really almost like 3 different things? I mean, you obviously you got the natural beef,
Right.
and then you've got what they're kind of lab growing, and then you've got something that's vegetable based. Is there 3 different things? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, and you're talking about like older forms of soy burgers. Those are just straight up 100% vegetables churned into a burger patty. Those didn't have the texture or the taste that consumers would buy into.
Yeah.
Would
Yeah.
want.
Oh, okay. All
So
right.
the evolution of fake meat isn't the right way to say that, but
But that's what people
Yeah,
It's
for-
it's
imitation. Yeah,
imitating
that's a
meat.
better-
I mean,
so
right?
and I don't want to tick off the other side or whatever or my side, but and misquote anything. But now you're having what's called cell-based or lab-created meat, where they are figuring out how to actually grow cells and churn them into a burger. All within the confines of a laboratory. No animals are being
harmed.
are harvested or harmed. I mean, other than the ones that they stole the original cells from. But
Yeah.
no, so there is. You could really say there's 2 different kinds, or basically 3 different kinds, when you're talking about just straight up butchered cattle, which is beef. We call beef. Then your plant-based. And then your variation, because even this cell-based meat or lab-grown or test tube meat, these are all technical terms used for this. I see that they're infused with, soybean extract. So there's still plant-based substances going into these lab-created meats.
And I don't know this, and maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't want us to speak out of turn on this either, but this particular burger that we've got here, I was under the assumption that this was mostly like vegetables, which maybe that was the marketing. I don't know.
Right, and so I pulled it up here. What's in an Impossible Burger? And there might be 2 different things here, because this is the Impossible Whopper. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But Impossible
But
Burger.
I think the Impossible is
I'm
actually
opening mine
a
so I
company
can see what this looks like.
that makes it, right?
Yes, it's Impossible Foods.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's the most popular burger out there, is called the Impossible Burger from Impossible Foods Inc.
Yeah.
And what's in the Impossible Burger is soy protein concentrate, coconut oil. The 3rd leading ingredient is sunflower oil. So right off, the first 3 ingredients are plant-based extracted oils. Potato protein, methocellulose, yeast extract, salt, gums, water, and additives, including vitamins, B12, and zinc. So,
I mean, first glance, this looks like a turkey burger to me,
okay.
just from the color.
So, like a little lighter,
Yes.
are you saying?
The color's lighter.
Okay.
I don't know. I guess I need to open my regular Whopper.
And it's
but
very,
I mean,
it's very, what's the word? It's cookie cutter. You
yeah,
know
I
what
was
mean?
just gonna
Like,
say round. It's like
Yeah.
they.
like the
had-
shape is exactly the same thickness. It's exactly the same shape, whatever. And you get some of that with some
Right.
burgers, like you go to
Right.
like a Wendy's or whatever. The burger's the same every time, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
but look at this. Okay, so look at this burger. I know you guys cannot see, obviously. If only you
Well,
could.
I'm going to get mine out too. Here.
All right. Right. The color is way different, obviously, and the shape. That's exactly the first 2 things that I thought of, too. So, cookie cutter, for sure,
Shape
and color.
and the color. Well, and
Thickness, it's about the same.
from the research, or I'm a sucker for the documentaries. I am. The big hurdle that these companies like Impossible Burger have come across is the taste. Like, we will sidestep all these other things, but if you can get the taste right, they think that's the hurdle that will
And they want it to taste like a burger.
like a burger.
Exactly
Yes. Yep.
as close as possible.
And so they don't mind
Right?
and they don't necessarily mind the health kick or that side, and they don't mind putting this, that, or whatever into it. is it safe or not safe? It's the taste. We got to get the taste right. Otherwise, it's all for naught. So
Yeah.
the big thing is, does this actually taste like a regular Whopper? And I'm
So
curious.
are people
I have no idea.
throwing out the door the health factor then, or that it's healthier,
I
or
think
is that
that's
a
still
topic?
where a lot of people's heads are. I mean, who
Okay.
knows if that's where the manufacturers are at, but
Right. And
I mean,
so
it's-
I think that's a huge question, because that's
Okay.
still your initial thought, right? Is like, well, it's made of vegetables, so
Right.
it's healthier, right? And that's not necessarily the case. Now, the Impossible Burger that's a quarter pounder, 2 burgers there side by side. The cholesterol in that one is 100 milligrams compared to 0 of the Impossible Burger. So
there's no cholesterol
no
in this guy.
cholesterol. So that's
Okay.
pretty awesome. Calories comparable, 220 versus 280. So
yeah.
that's not healthy. Saturated fat, there's actually more saturated fat in the Impossible Whopper compared to the regular, and that's 11 grams compared to 6.5. So once again, comparable.
yeah.
But there's actually more in the Possible Burger.
Almost
and
double.
Then sodium, this is where it's salt.
Yeah.
470 milligrams compared to only 82 in the regular Whopper.
So that's the flavor thing
That
you're
was
talking
gonna say
about.
they have to do something for the flavor.
And I think you're seeing it right there. Very, very high in sodium. And that's before you add the bun, which is laced with salt and sugar. So if you're... And they actually make this disclaimer. I was looking into it. We're not trying to be a health food. We're trying to mimic real burger.
Right.
So, they're not worried about high sodium levels, and they're totally off the health kick. Although that narrative is still being carried. That's what's been brought. That's how it was sold in the 80s and 90s, and up until now. So you still think that's still your initial thought, but that's not the case. They're only trying to get taste taken care of.
And that's in particular probably these big chain restaurants and what they're trying to achieve. Where I would imagine there's probably some companies making these things that they're not overly worried about flavor. They are worried about exactly what is in this thing. And yeah, it might taste like a piece of paper, but this is what you're getting.
Right. Yeah. I mean, are you kind of talking about groups of people, like, they don't care, like, their mind is made up. They are not going to eat regular meat. They are not going to eat a slaughtered animal. So they would rather eat paper.
I mean,
or
I think
cardboard.
there's probably companies that are making this imitation meat
For restaurants. you
for
mean.
restaurants, or they're just selling it, whatever, like they're packaging it and selling it, that they're not putting in all of this sodium and so on and so forth. So there probably are some options like that out there, I would imagine.
And I think that's where those first couple of generations of plant-based meats, they were trying to be healthier.
Yeah.
That was the route that they took. So I would venture to say you're probably right. If you go to your local grocery store and look for a soy-based burger, you can probably find something with a lot less sodium in it compared to this Impossible Whopper that we have in front of us.
Yeah, right.
So
And I think there's a couple of things, with us being a little bit tied to agriculture and the farming industry, there's some things that have come up over the last few years with some of the folks that we work with that I didn't realize was going to happen, that have been a bit of a positive for them with this whole movement, and that would be the guys who are raising the crops that are the raw inputs on these burgers. There was one of the guys we were talking to up north. They raise a lot of peas, and I don't know which company it was that was making these burgers. This Impossible, or there's a ton of them. They're buying more peas than is actually available on the market to put into these burgers.
Oh, well, that's
So,
good for their
Yeah,
business.
so it's been like a big windfall for those growers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the end result's like, but there's some of those kinds of things that are happening that I never even realized, never thought about.
That's amazing, and that's a little bit. I don't know if contradiction might be a little bit too big of a word, but
Right.
that's one of the stances that a lot of these backers of lab-grown meats are. Is that, look, we're trying to preserve the land. So right now we're growing corn, and it takes huge swaths of land across the Midwest to grow all this corn, to then feed the cattle, to then feed us. Why don't we just grow the corn and we eat the corn?
Yeah.
Right? You're taking out the middleman. Now that I hear that, it's like, no, we're growing peas to put into lab-created meats. So, like,
Yep.
you're still got that that middleman, if you will, that junction of it. And maybe it's a lot less of an environmental footprint, but it's still there and it's still prevalent. So
and there's a whole. I mean, we could talk about this thing for probably 4 or 5 hours, but the environmental footprint and so on and so forth. There's a whole movement around what cattle are doing to the environment and blah blah blah. And I think if you're connected to the industry, you pretty much know that look, that's BS. But I think there's probably a few positives and negatives each way. There's people that are benefiting from this imitation meat thing,
right.
and they are real folks that we deal with, some good people.
Yeah.
But there's also people that aren't, and that's going to happen, no matter what.
Right. I don't want to come out and just be totally against someone that would prefer an Impossible Whopper just because they don't want to eat meat, they don't believe in hunting, they don't believe in modern day agriculture,
Mm-hmm.
So if that's their belief and that's the route they want to go, this is America. They should be free
Right.
to follow that. And so I think it's great. I really do. That there's an option for them. It's just that it's not a healthier option. There's still a carbon footprint. Maybe it's less, but it is still there. And I think the more research we look into it, it might not be as less as what we're being led to believe, or
Right.
what's the mainstream media is kind of telling us there. So I think to your point, it's one of those deals where you just kind of have to do your own research and make up your own mind on it. And you also hit on something. We're all from Nebraska, the Midwest. Yep. And I mean, that's part of our livelihood. The beef industry, the corn industry, when you're and that's why people get so fired up about it around here. It's you're actually attacking our livelihood. I grew up on a farm, and that was one of my first jobs as a kid growing up, was bucket calves. Then we turned into fat cattle, and I got to sell when I was 12 years old.
Really?
And that was my first bank account was due to me raising these calves and feeding them every morning before I went to school. So it's hard for me, it's going to be real difficult to try and tell me that that's, murder and bad and this and that and everything else.
But you're open to hearing it,
Yes.
but that's not you at the core.
Right.
And I'm more I think what you're saying, I'm more open to hearing okay, I would prefer to eat this than to eat this, whatever, but I'm not open to hearing the thing that you're talking about there where you say oh, this is murder and this is so bad and blah, blah, blah. No, this is, again, we could go into the depths of this, but there's a lot of folks that we know personally raising these animals, caring for them every single day as much as they care for anything else that they have, as much as they care for their dog that sleeps with them, every night, and they're doing things responsibly, period.
Yeah, and that's what gets lost is the people that are actually raising the beef that we eat every day, or pork or chicken, they care for these animals more than you do, and you're just throwing your perspective or your ill-advised, do your homework or talk to some of these people, or you can just do a Google search, and if you have 15 minutes to actually read up on this, you could learn a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the contradictions, other than just the emissions and carbon footprint, that I found kind of hilarious almost in one of those documentaries was they used the words camouflaged and the big ag, they camouflage words so you don't know who you're eating. You don't know the cow or the calf you're eating. So you use the word.
Is marketing camouflaging what's in this burger in front of me? Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, that's exactly where I was going with it. So they're saying the word, you don't eat a cow, you eat beef. You don't eat a pig, you eat pork. And if people would just say, I'm eating pigs, that's one step to becoming a vegetarian. This one guy was saying, I'm like,
oh, jeez.
Oh, no. I don't even, for me growing up on a farm, I don't even see the difference. When I hear beef, I think of a cow. I think of cattle. So, there's no differentiation there for me.
For sure.
But then in the exact same segment of this documentary, they said, well, maybe that's what these lab-grown meats have the issue with. They need to change their name. So then they started coming up with names like cultured, clean. So it's okay for you to camouflage.
Right, but
the
we
name.
cannot.
Yeah, but beef, that's, no.
Yeah,
that's,
beef.
You better call it a cow. I'm eating cow. And I mean, I guess I found that kind of weird. When I hear the word beef, I just think cattle. There's no difference to me.
Okay, this made me think of this. I was talking to my sister the other day, and I kind of forgot this happened to us when we lived in Texas. You cannot order beef pizza. They say beef. You have to say hamburger.
Oh, wow.
Did you know that?
I had
They didn't
no.
really know
Huh.
what.
Well, I think that's you're probably just talking
or
about
maybe
like,
did I twist those?
What?
Oh,
No,
maybe I've said.
I think you're talking about just like regional, like terms for stuff, like
Yes, but I think
pop,
she even.
pop?
right, yeah, pop and soda or Coke and
Maybe.
pop and
I
soda.
gotta try this.
Like around here, if you get pizza,
You say hamburger. So,
but we usually say both, but beef. I mean, we say beef too.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I thought she said it wasn't even available. So then it made me just think, can pizza, is this going to go on pizza next, right?
oh,
I'm
I'm
sure it
sure,
is,
yeah, 100%. I bet it
Okay,
already is.
so
yeah. Mhm.
are these companies then marketing this to be ground? I mean, obviously it's in
yeah.
a
Oh, they
patty.
got ground, yeah.
As soon as they can produce this,
It's going.
yeah, it's got to be cheap and cheap or comparable, and it's also got to have the taste. The big hurdle is the taste. But as soon as that
sure.
happens, yeah, who
Okay, I'm
really
trying
looks
this.
at your frozen pizza?
Before we get into these flavors, which I just bit into both of them. Yeah, as we talk, we start going in all these different directions, and you got a lot of stuff there.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what else do you got that you wanted to dig into?
Oh, well, kind of with what you're talking about, labels there. Meat. Back in 2018, Missouri was the first state that made it straight up illegal to call anything other than something that was slaughtered from an animal meat. So that's where these terms came from: test tube, lab grown, cell based, and then that wasn't working. That doesn't sound appetizing,
Right.
does it?
No.
So now they're using the words cultured, clean.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, like, so, and a number of other states have kind of followed suit, Nebraska being one of them, like just straight up, don't call that something. It's something, like it's food,
Yeah.
and it's good food to some. Like
Yeah,
the
right.
taste is getting better, and it's getting more and more complex. But you just straight up can't call it meat. And in Missouri, if you do that, like package it and call it meat, you could serve up to a year in prison. So, so like that's your ag industry straight up ponying up and getting some of their I don't know what you want to call it, narratives or their laws kind of passed there, which I think you have to protect yourself.
I think you do too, and I don't have a problem with that. Like, don't try to disguise something as something else. You know what I mean? Like, let's just be real about it.
Yeah, and if all of my pork chops, like that was an argument, we'll call it a pig. Call it a pig chop. Fine, call it a pig chop. I'm still going to eat it because I know pork comes from pig, and
Right.
and so like this might actually work in everyone's best interest from both sides, where we're taking the mask off, we're taking the veil off at all. Like I do think it's healthy that people know that a cow was slaughtered to make this hamburger. Like you should understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the food industry, big ag, kind of did that to themselves, trying to mask it and make chicken nuggets the shapes of dinosaurs and stuff like that. It's fun and everything else, but it kind of put a veil on it, and it didn't make people think that, oh wow, a lot of work, time, and effort, and something died for this.
Okay.
You know, like you should be grateful, you should be thankful, and just as a culture, we've kind of lost a lot of that. So, as far as pulling the veil off and like what you're saying, like let's straight up say what we're eating, and why are we trying to hide it? You know,
Right.
I don't get that.
And I think one of the things that you pointed out there, whether you intended to or not, is how disconnected we have gotten from our food source. Because, like you said, understand that this came from this particular animal, that this came from this particular plant, that this came from this area of the country, whatever. Everything is so accessible that it's just like, ignorance is bliss.
Right.
Right? Once you start realizing, and you touched on earlier being a hunter, how all this actually works. There's a number of people that talk trash about hunters and this is what they want to do and so on and so forth. But the reality is that we're closer to our food source at even an emotional level than they could ever imagine.
Right.
I mean, exactly how that came up, where it came from, how it was taken, how you treated it, how you put it to use, so on and so forth.
And just by churn, you're more grateful for it.
Absolutely.
All of it.
Yep.
You know, and of course you're going to take care of this animal and try and give it the easiest, best life it could possibly have. Like in my case, where I was raising bucket calves.
Yeah.
You know, and you do. It's a feeling that only I feel a farmer, a rancher, or a hunter could actually feel. Like when you actually shoot that deer and then begin to process it, like you feel there's a little sorrow there.
Yep.
You know, but my goodness, on July 4th when I'm cooking those deer steaks,
Yeah.
you know, it's
so good.
It's so good. I'm even more thankful and grateful for it.
Yep.
To that animal, to the hunting industry, to all of it. You know,
Yep.
and being disconnected, I do. I agree with you, Ben. I don't think it's a good thing. And
Yeah, I think we're that far removed. You eat, you don't think about it. You don't think about the hard work that went into the labor that
right.
you just don't. It's like to your point, it's so accessible.
And we're all guilty of it. Like we make as much stuff at home as we can, and it comes from, you know, our local producers and those kinds of things. That's where we get our meat. But yeah, I mean, we swing through these fast food joints all the time. You know, I mean that convenience is a good thing.
I even like the convenience of just slapping together a bologna sandwich, like when I'm working at home or I'm gonna be taking off early and I just want to eat something on the road. I know it's
something fast.
It's uber processed.
God, I haven't had bologna sandwich in forever. I don't even think
I'm really a bologna guy.
Don't think I like that. Andy, that's your go-to?
I love bologna. I love cotto salami is my favorite in the bologna
okay.
aisle. And I do. I love the cheap stuff. I'm terrible.
Spam?
You know, a fried Spam burger, you do it right, it's pretty good.
Really?
Yeah.
Spam's not really that big around here.
It's not.
You don't really see it.
I can't even say that I've had that.
I've only had Spam a couple of times, but fried up and done right,
it's good.
And that's probably a whole nother topic. I don't know if we want to look up what's in that.
Isn't that kind of go
please
along,
don't tell me.
along the lines of what we're talking about, joking around about? Like,
totally.
Some of these fast food burgers, like, man, what's really in that anyway? Is that actual,
right?
You know, so.
You're in the bathroom right after, you wonder. Okay, so Ben, you took bites of both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Opinions. Can we talk about this?
My initial thought is that this is a lot like anything else that you would try for the first time or that you would try to make the change. So, like, as an example, our middle daughter, you know, for the longest time she was having stomach issues and we switched to gluten-free.
Correct.
So then we started having all this gluten-free stuff in the house, like gluten-free noodles,
right?
You know, gluten-free breads, all these kinds of things. And when we started on them, I was just like, God, this stuff is horrible. But I didn't say it because I didn't want her to feel bad.
I mean, this was 5 years we did this, so.
But
okay.
But then slowly over time, it started getting palatable and you started getting used to it. So my first question in my mind with this is, do I like the regular meat better because that's what I'm used to and because that's always what I've ate?
Right.
And then if I were to eat this Impossible thing all the time, would I develop a taste for it? It's just like, I mean, the first time you drank a beer. Yeah, I mean, do you remember? You probably had to choke it down.
Yeah, I was 10.
Right?
No.
I was just going to say, right? Like if you make a mixed drink and your kid thinks it's your cup that you normally drink water in and they're like, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that, having some beers and it just being like, God, this is not good. Why does everybody like this? But it's so cool and you know, all this kind of stuff. And then eventually you develop that taste and now all of a sudden like you drink craft beers and you try all these different flavors and you can understand like this one's more hoppy and so on and so forth, all these things that go along with it. So I wonder if that's what would end up happening from a flavor standpoint. But I do have to say that 100% I like the regular one better. I don't 100% know why, but the Impossible meat, like when I was first eating it, it was okay, and then the aftertaste was really strange.
Did the aftertaste, to me, and maybe it's because you planted that seed in my head, I thought it did kind of taste like peas or maybe carrots or something.
Yeah,
like
it was something very kind of kind of blandish.
Right, it was
Yeah.
the aftertaste.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
the initial Whoppers, I mean, they loaded up with their tomatoes and the lettuce.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that just pops you no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the regular Whopper, I just had one bite of each. That's a taste I was familiar with, and I like.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
And then the Impossible Whopper, initially, it's like, all right, this is all right. Not quite as strong as of a beef taste. You know, it didn't have that charred, you know,
For sure.
that you get off of a grill taste. But then, yeah, the aftertaste I thought was very evident. You know,
Yeah.
almost like a vegetable wang to it, if you will.
In
Yeah.
a blind
It wasn't
test.
bad. I'm not saying it was
Yeah,
bad.
no, I had to take. I mean, there's 2 bites out of this one because I took the first bite, and I didn't know like what was going on. I didn't think there. I don't know. I can't even explain it. It was very bland to me.
Yeah, bland.
So that's why I
word.
thought,
Yeah.
okay, take another bite. Maybe I missed something. I didn't.
No, it's
So-
it's a little bit more bland, and it doesn't have that pop or that punch that the regular burger has. Which I wish we would have done like a blindfolded one of us. You know,
Yeah.
that would've
Right?
been-
I was thinking that because that's what they did, I think, at the commercial. Or, I mean, is that why we think it's not as good? Because we know. You know, like you're on this
I
side.
think I would
and-
know 100%. If
You
I did a
totally
blind
would.
test, I
Me-
would know.
I mean, I'm getting better on like quality beef.
Yeah, yeah. Oh
but it's just because you've grilled it so
And
much.
for me,
but
a burger is my favorite meal.
yeah. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
totally.
I could pick it out a mile away. But I mean, I wouldn't say it's horrible.
No, I wouldn't either.
Nope.
Yeah, then I mean, obviously, I prefer the regular, but I wouldn't say it's horrible. And if you're accustomed to it, or let's say you are one of those health nuts that I haven't had a Burger King or McDonald's in 10 years, would you know? Would you know the difference? Would you know if I handed you the Impossible Whopper? I mean, you'd probably just think, oh, well, yeah, this is what they taste like, because you hadn't had one in 10 years. Like, that's an interesting.
But is
point
that
there.
why they actually made it? I mean, did they make this burger at the restaurant for, again, the health side? Or is it for that person that doesn't want the beef option? Because I can't assume that a ton of healthy people are going to say, hey, I
Right.
want to run through Burger King
Yeah.
or a fast food place and get this. Or I guess that's what I'm trying to
That's
I'm
a-
trying to figure out, like,
No,
where.
that's a terrific question there and point. And this is all brought on by the market, and this is people demanding meat without actually slaughtering an animal.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying they
it's the
want
American
this.
way, isn't it?
Okay.
I want my cake and
Okay.
eat it too.
Yep.
You know,
I
and-
want it how I want it.
Yeah. And
Wait, isn't that Burger King's slogan like "Have it your way"?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you have it. So, and what this is trying to sell is that there's no compromise. There's no animals being killed, and it still tastes like a
Okay,
burger. So,
right.
like that is what you're buying, and that's why people are willing to pay $1 extra for this Whopper. Is because
and to wait longer.
yeah, oh yeah, because that's another good point. I did the drive-through, and I had to wait for the 3 Impossible Whoppers compared to the regular Whoppers that were ready to just go.
And that could be regional, right? I mean,
Sure.
we're here,
I'm sure
again,
it
like
is,
you said,
yeah.
in Nebraska. Maybe these are
Yeah.
more popular.
Down here in small town, those things are sitting in the freezer, man. They're not going anywhere.
I bet you're
I mean,
right.
they may be flying off the shelves somewhere else, but
Probably.
yeah, not here.
Yeah.
So, you ready to go down a little history lesson here as
Sure.
to kind of what
Yeah.
made humans humans?
Can I eat
All right,
my
let's do it.
regular burger at the same
Yes,
time?
you guys.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, have an Impossible Whopper or a
Okay.
regular Whopper while we're doing this. But
Storytelling?
so, 3.4 million years ago, an animal bone back in Ethiopia was found. It's fossilized, but it had cuts on it, and it's the first bone they ever found that kind of showed that the ancient humanoids or humans of that time started hunting and butchering animals. So that's the first sign that humans ever ate meat. Now back then it was very gorilla-like. Our teeth were completely flat, all for eating plants. Since that time, just 3.4 million years ago, we've evolved into what we are now, Homo sapiens. And the thought was because of all those rich proteins, fats, calories, vitamins like B12, and complex irons. It allowed our brains to grow, our stomachs to shrink, and our intestines to really shrink. Like they're not near as long as they used to be.
Huh.
So the whole reason or point the way that humans were able to kind of take over, if you will, planet Earth, was due to eating meat. So just on that surface alone, I'm thinking, why do we want to get away from that?
Yeah.
Don't we want to keep
Yeah.
evolving in the right way, in the right
come on.
direction? We've evolved enough, I guess, to some, but
Right.
there are 3 dominant omnivores out there, and that's humans, cockroaches, and rats.
Yeah, cockroaches.
And
Oh,
if rats or cockroaches, just think about that. If they would have figured out how to hunt and eat meat more efficiently than humans, they might be the dominant species. Their brains would have grown.
is that not a movie? I feel like I don't know.
It sounds like a movie. It probably is, but that's just the honest to God truth.
Oh,
And that
gosh.
evolution, in evolutionary terms, happened pretty fast.
Yeah,
Just 3.4 million years ago.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just crazy to think of. So
yeah, it is.
on that basis, and now our teeth, we got sharp teeth and this and that for eating meat, and that's also why humans are one of the most efficient animals, if you will, on the planet. We figured it out, and we started eating meat, and that allowed our brains to actually grow through
Okay.
those proteins in
Yeah.
the meat.
Huh.
Pretty wild, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
100% behind that. I mean, I think people who would listen to this and know where we're from, that probably would expect that we're going to be like, all right, we're on the meat side. Of course we are, but we're logical about it, and
Yeah.
and what else is out there, and hey, people want some other things. It's fine.
Yeah, and I feel, you founded Farm Focused,
Yeah.
owner, CEO, and everything else. Or are you the CEO, Morgan? CEO.
Sometimes.
So what?
Yeah.
But and
Sometimes.
with me growing up on a farm and delivering ag news, for my company, it'd be easy for me or you to fly off the handle and say, "Hey, you're attacking my livelihood,"
Yeah.
and blah blah.
Right.
But I don't feel like that's what we're doing here. Like I actually want to know, and I do see some positives in this type. If for nothing else, to allow folks that have a different opinion on it, give them an option. What's wrong with the option? As long as everyone's educated and understands what's going on, and I'm all for it on the ag side, like we're talking about. Take the veil off and actually show people that a cow had to die to make that hamburger. I don't see a problem with that either. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of misconceptions going on both sides,
For
Yeah.
sure.
and I'm just right down the middle. Like I feel like a lot of Midwesterns are. Like,
Yeah.
why are you guys so mad? And you guys over here, why are you guys so mad?
Yeah.
Like figure it out. I don't know.
I think part of the deal too is, like you said, like that accountability on the meat side of things. We've seen a lot of stuff happen, that with us being involved in it wouldn't necessarily be proud of.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you see some stuff and you're like, man, some of these things, like you guys kind of paved the way for this. You should
Yeah.
have done something a little
Yeah.
different,
It's true.
One of the things I was thinking about earlier, like that whole whatever it was that went down with McDonald's on like the slime stuff that they were
Oh,
putting in
pink
their
slime?
burgers, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was
Yes.
adding like body to it and making the meat go further, and like I think that was really one of the beginning things that started this movement with what we have sitting in front of us right now.
Gosh, I forgot about that.
Because a lot of people got pissed about that, and I remember seeing it and
Yeah.
being like, "Oh man, that's weird." Like I'm sure there was a reason for it, but
Yeah.
it was some weird stuff that was happening that
And I think
we kind of made that bet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. Now you've opened the door for another entity to
Yeah.
kind of move in and like attack you. The latest pink slime story was with how public schools were using pink slime and they were infusing it into like chicken nuggets, and so that got taken off the board.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then a lot of schools went bankrupt, or their food departments did, because they couldn't afford a
Couldn't
regular.
afford the good stuff.
They could. You needed
Yeah,
the pink
yeah.
slime for
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
protein
Ugh.
base. And McDonald's, they're the front runners, so they're always the ones catching the brunt end of this. But yeah, if you would have just been open and upfront, and maybe that's another one of those. Maybe you should have camouflaged the name a little bit better. Because when I
Yeah.
think of pink slime, I think of Ghostbusters.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah,
The Ghostbusters
exactly.
movie, and nobody wants to eat that.
No.
So,
Wow.
but-
There's just things like that, and we were talking about some of these ingredients in this impossible thing that we can't pronounce, and what they do. Like,
Well, here, let's.
Oh gosh.
I'll turn it up here, and I'll have. There we go.
Methylcellulose.
Methylcellulose. That's the fourth ingredient in the Impossible Burger. Yeah, soy protein, concentrate, coconut oil, sunflower oil, potato protein, and methylcellulose. And do you want to know what methylcellulose is?
I don't know. Do we?
Enlighten us.
I mean, I don't know.
Methylcellulose is a bulk-forming laxative that increases the amount of water in your stools to help you make them softer and easier to pass. Methylcellulose is used to treat constipation to help maintain regular bowel movements. And that's the 5th ingredient in an Impossible Burger.
I
See,
mean,
that's the kind of stuff
come
I'm talking about.
on.
So, yeah,
Again,
yeah.
to my point, you're running to the bathroom, or they're trying to help
Yeah.
you, or is it because there is so much
and
soy,
There's
vegetable,
got to
like,
be a reason
stuff?
for it. I mean, and I'm sure like
Well,
the
our
chemists have a reason,
our
but
stomachs have evolved to not just eat plants.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
It's a very complex stomach now, and that kind of tells you that, yeah.
So actually, maybe it evens you out,
yeah,
right? There's
maybe.
a lot of that. They put this in there. Please say it again. Methylcellulosis. Woo.
Methylcellulose. Yeah, I just kind of like.
Yeah.
Methylcellulose.
Okay. That then you're just regular. Then it's fine.
Yeah. So, but it does kind of showcase the point. Like, get off the health kick, and a lot
Yes.
of nutritionists out there, they say the same thing. Like, a lot of these new cell-based or lab-based meats, they're not necessarily healthy, and you can see that all their main goal now is to mimic what real, quote unquote, real meat tastes like.
Okay.
So, but that's another reason why I like having this conversation with you guys and getting the word out is like, get off the health kick. You know, I mean, if there are healthier burgers out there as far as turkey burgers and soybean burgers, but they don't taste near as good as what we have here in front of us. You know,
Right.
in
Absolutely.
a traditional
yeah.
manner, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I think for me, I mean, if you guys are ready for this, what brings it to kind of bring this to, you know, on our way out is the bottom line. Obviously, you got to pick what's right for you.
Mm-hmm.
And what's right for us is the meat. I mean, period. But we are smart about how we go about getting it and what we do. So to begin with, it's the hunting. It's bringing in, you know, that game.
Right.
The right way.
And where you know where it came from, and you respect it, and you have that kind of that kind of thing going on. And most people that we know, that's the boat that they're in. And then the number 2 thing is from the beef standpoint, understanding where that comes from. You know, on the big scale, like you go here, this burger right here came from who knows where. You know, probably through some massive feed yard and the processing facilities and so on and so forth.
Uh-huh.
And I don't necessarily feel good about those, but I understand that there's a need for some of that stuff.
Right.
But what you can do and what we do is source your meats in your region locally.
Right. And you're going down a path here that I really like and appreciate. So the population of the world has more than doubled the last 15 years. In that same time, meat production has quadrupled. So we're sitting at 335 million pounds of meat being produced. Now, a lot of that has to do with, you know, our society and capitalism and McDonald's seeing how many burgers you can eat a week or how many. And that goes back into if people had an appreciation or understood a little bit more of it, maybe they wouldn't eat 4 burgers a week. Maybe they'd just eat 1 a week. So I think there's that accountability factors to where, you know, and then maybe these feedlots wouldn't be so full, and that would probably be a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I'm willing to give up this and that, and I do think it'd probably be a healthier diet if I ate less bologna or you know. But we're at where we're at right now, and go back to that other point where people are camouflaging kind of the truth, and let's try and get the truth out there as much as possible. But that's on you to
do
actually,
your research,
yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah.
And were you going with trying to find, Ben, a local place that you respect, that you...
No, what I'm getting at, and that's not accessible to everyone, but because like I said, there is a need for, you know, some of these mass producers, but let me go back just a second. A common theme that's going to come up from me in these recordings that we're doing is the stuff that we do all comes down to convenience. Like the way that our society's been shaped comes down to convenience in my mind.
Yeah.
100%.
Uh-huh.
So the convenience of being able to run through that drive-through whenever you want.
Mm-hmm.
The convenience of being able to run down to the grocery store and grab whatever you want from there anytime. That is what drives what we've got going on. Now, it's inconvenient to go find your own local producer or be your own producer for that
Right.
fact.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
get yourself 6 head and raise them and do whatever you want to do with them, right?
Yeah.
That's the way it used to work. But it's inconvenient to go that route and to buy it in bulk and to store it and have the freezers and all the things that
And
go
the
along with it.
time. Yeah.
Yep. And to plan your meals.
Sure.
Right? If you've got a freezer full of meat, you've got to be thinking about it at like noon or in the morning. Set it out, get it ready.
Right.
You know, as opposed to the convenience of running to the grocery store and grabbing that thawed out steak or whatever it is that you're going to do.
Yeah.
So the convenience thing is that. So people need to think about that. But to get into getting that stuff close to home, we've purchased from and worked directly with a number of different producers around here, right here in Nebraska, from cattle to pigs to bison.
Yeah.
And we have all of that in our freezer right now.
Right.
And a couple of the big places that we've worked with, I mean, beef-wise, in our freezer right now, we originally purchased some stuff from Double O. Their stuff was phenomenal.
Amazing.
And then the Upstream Boys, which is what we got a whole cow from last time.
So good.
That beef
Oh
is
my
stupid
gosh.
good.
Yeah, I know.
Like these burgers, man. I mean, we had some the other night. That burger sitting next to this one right here, forget about it.
Yeah.
Forget about it, right?
Yeah, I know.
But so you got that, and then we went out west. Took my daughter out there, and we went to the Rocky Hollow Buffalo Company in western Nebraska, and helped them do some fencing and move the animals around a little bit, and got some of that and brought that home. And that's a whole different game there.
Yeah,
You know,
it
I mean,
is.
that's the way that those guys respect those animals and how they raise them, and I mean, they're part of their family. The meat's great. You know, it's
Yeah.
right here, locally raised stuff. And then to the pork. Zobel, I think, was the name of the farm here in Nebraska that we went to and got 3 pigs.
Yeah, you did.
I mean, took the animals directly from their farm, slaughtered
Yeah,
them
yeah.
there, you know, brought them home,
Hung them.
cleaned it all up,
Cleaned 'em.
went through the process.
Yeah.
That's some of the best pork we've ever had.
Oh,
But the point
I know,
is
yeah.
that people have options. And when you know directly where it comes from, when you know the families that are raising them, you know how they're doing it, I just don't see how you beat it.
Well, and like you're saying, it comes down to options, and that's why the Impossible Burger is $1 more than this one. Like you know what's going on, and you're willing to pay that extra dollar to get what you want and support what you want.
Yeah.
And as long as you're aware of it. And real quick, you're talking about the bison burgers.
Yeah.
That's an even leaner type
Right,
of
right,
beef,
yeah.
if you will. And if that's a 90 lean cut compared to a typical 80% lean cut, a burger actually has less calories than the Impossible Burger. So then that
Oh,
actually
really?
shifts it
Yep.
if you do a bison type of burger.
We just had some bison steak
Yeah.
the other
Oh,
night,
they're,
and
they're phenomenal, aren't they?
super good. But like to your point, really lean.
It's a different game. You
It
got to
is.
learn how to cook it.
So
Yeah.
feather in my cap. Can I get on a soapbox real quick?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
Ashley and I, we have a little, grinder, a little processor from Cabela's, and every so often when a pork shoulder or something goes on quick sale at a local grocery store, we'll buy it, thaw it, and we'll throw a bunch of deer scraps in it. Whether it's neck meat or whatever, rump, and we just made our latest round of burger, and I made those for the 4th of July weekend for a bunch of people we had in, and we had some people in from Minnesota, very liberal, blue state,
Yep.
right? And,
Yeah.
and I didn't tell them anything that it was a deer burger. That
Oh,
we
you
cut with
didn't?
No.
They just.
And I made them, and even the little boys, they're like, "This is the best burger I've ever had," and that wasn't prompted. I wasn't asking for it. And Ashley was, pretty darn proud of it, which was her buck.
Yeah.
That she shot that we processed, and she's like, "That's a deer burger, that's a venison burger," and they're like, "Oh, you gotta be kidding!" They're like, "We thought venison burger was lean and yucky." I'm like, "Well, we cheat. We throw pork in there,
Yeah.
Right.
But it's." But then the appreciation, like you're talking about, and actually knowing, like, I think they would have enjoyed that burger even more so had they known that, oh my goodness, Ashley shot that buck, we cleaned it, processed it, and actually grinded it into burger. Like, that's a lot goes into that. And not everybody can do that or has the time or resources to.
That's the
Yeah.
thing,
So-
right? I mean, that took some time, but
Yeah.
and it was hard.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys had, could do
Yeah.
that and serve that to your friends.
Right. And to Ben's point, though, it takes effort. It takes time. It takes a commitment. And It just makes you that more conscious of what you're eating, what you're putting into your body. And for me, I'm just all that more grateful for the animal, for the food, and I was proud. I was proud to serve those burgers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was even just elated, so happy that everyone enjoyed them, which I knew they would. Come on.
And grateful for the people involved, the families involved, which that's really, I think, one of the biggest things here is all the people involved in doing this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the community, the producers, the hunters,
Yeah.
the people that put their life into these things, and that shouldn't be overlooked.
Well, and yeah, I think an opinion of someone that's actually in the middle of it, actually doing this stuff, should probably carry a little bit more weight than someone that's not.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that should be fair across the board. I'll listen to you, but okay, where are you getting that experience from? How are you forming that opinion? Are you in it? Do you have any experience, or did you read up on this? And that's another thing where the internet has allowed
Yeah.
everyone to have a very loud
Yeah.
opinion,
Yeah.
even though maybe people shouldn't be listening to that opinion.
Yep.
People have a whole lot different things to say when they're face to face, no doubt about that. And I promise you, anybody who's at all on the fence, or even if they're kind of heavily on the side of like, I'm not into animal agriculture, if they went out to any one of these farms and ranches that we deal directly with and rode around in the ATV with those producers and those families and realized how this was all actually working,
Right.
they're gonna have a different perspective.
It'd blow their mind. And if it didn't, they probably wouldn't say anything.
Maybe.
I don't,
Yeah.
like face to face, right?
Yeah.
It
No,
just,
I do
it'd probably
think
just,
it'd be a learning experience for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah.
But you would think that most people would go to a farm like, regardless, sheep farm. I worked at a hog confinement farm in college and high school. And through that experience, I've grown a greater appreciation for pork, for pigs, and I enjoy pork chops so much now. I tell you what, after working there for a couple of summers, every time I bite into one of those, I think of those 2 miserable summers.
hard work, I bet.
It was hard work and everything else. And those it wasn't the most enjoyable summer gig, I can say that.
Yeah, that stuff's not easy for anybody that's directly involved in that, that's for sure. But there is a level of pride and that comes along
No
with
doubt.
it. So
Yeah.
No doubt. So all right.
Well, this was good. Wow,
Yeah.
Andy, thanks for these burgers.
Yeah. Real
mean,
and not so real, I don't know.
Yeah.
yeah,
Do we say fake, not fake? No, that's not right.
it was a good run around them there. That was interesting. I learned a lot myself.
Yes.
Well, good
Me too.
good deal. So until next time then, right?
Yep, for sure. Till next time.
All right. See you guys later.
Later.